Turn it on Cliff Live tonight. The latest news is feeling right. Kamala's speech so tight, yet no answers in our sight. Trump is shouting wild and loud, felon tales beneath the cloud. Cats and dogs beware, my friend. Springfield rumors never end. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along. Headlines coming fast and free. Comedy in what we'll see. Kamala dances round the press. Questions left in quiet stress. Trump's wild claims make us think. Cats and dogs on pizza rink. In Ohio, who can tell? News and laughter mix so well. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along. Is shouting wild and loud, felon tales beneath the cloud. Cats and dogs beware, my friend. Springfield rumors never end. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along.
All right, here we are. We're back. Of course, we're gonna need some sweet caffeine on deck, of course. One of my monitors not coming up. This. All right, there we go. There's that. See if my notifications are going out. Hopefully. Maybe not. Energy drink on deck. There it is. Whew. You're alive. Yeah, I made it. Made it out peacefully. Around 4, maybe 5 a.m. in the morning, the wind got really bad. It was only at that point that it kind of got a little bit concerning, but it was okay. Nothing crazy. I did a walk around my neighborhood with my dog this morning, and it looks like none of my neighbors' houses were damaged. The hurricane actually went south, so it didn't affect us that bad, really. I mean, the wind was crazy, for sure. A lot of like tree damage and things like that, but I'm looking at these neighbors' homes and nothing crazy, you know. Everybody seems fine. Nothing bad happened in Orlando at all. That's the good stuff right there. Whew. Yeah, yesterday I got a copyright claim on one of my videos. I was watching that Kamala interview, and they gave me a claim. Corporal Fly. Yeah, man, I'm alive. I made it. Made it out pretty good. Apparently my phone hates Twitch today. Moved to YouTube. Yeah, YouTube is the better platform. I don't plan on doing anything that's going to get us in trouble today. So probably just going to watch the White House press briefing and then call it a day. But yeah, they gave me a copyright claim yesterday. And so I tried to appeal it, and I got a weird response from them. They're like, what you did was technically not wrong because it's a reaction video, but it is wrong because you're using other people's material. But we're going to remove the warning. YouTube gives you like a warning, and then you get 3 strikes before they just remove your channel, and they remove the warning. So it's like I did something wrong, but yet you're going to take away the claim. I don't know, man. There's craziness. So I guess it's a good thing that they took off the claim. But you guys should have saw the wind last night. Like I said, it didn't really kick off until about 4 in the morning for us. And that's when things were getting pretty intense. I'm just glad from what I saw, my walk around the neighborhood, nobody looked like their home was damaged. So hopefully that means everybody's okay. People were actually being smart and staying off the road, it seemed like. So that's always good. Oh shit! I think they started the press briefing early. It was supposed to start at 1:30, but it's already going. Let me look here. What the hell's going on? Where video? Right there we go. Hey, look at this. They already started. Huh? Craziness. Just madness. Assuming they're not doing another briefing in here, but it said White House press briefing, so I don't know. Maybe they just went live too soon. I don't know. Let me skip forward a little bit. Their screen. All right, White House press
everyone.
briefing. See what she has to say.
So before I turn to the latest on the hurricane, I wanted to briefly mention at the top.
Well, the live stream is on. KGP won't be here for another 30 minutes. Yeah, it was weird because like they don't usually start until like half an hour late, but they started early. They just turned the feed on. But I mean, she's here. She's here already. So okay, whatever.
That at the top regarding the passing of Ethel Kennedy. I expect you will have something from the president very, very soon. They were dear friends, and I don't want to get too far ahead of him in his statement, but the president and the first lady are sending their love to her entire family and everyone whose life was touched by her strength and service. Now shifting gears to the storm. Yeah. This morning, the president and the vice president were briefed on the impacts from Hurricane Milton and will continue to be briefed throughout the day.
So I can say for us in Orlando, nothing crazy that I saw. I didn't really look at Tampa as far as the impact that actually happened in Tampa. I'm assuming they got wrecked. But from what I did see, the hurricane went south. So that's why maybe here in Florida, or here in Orlando rather, that's why we didn't get affected as much. She had to come out early to blame Trump. Most likely, yeah, that's coming. I'm surprised she hasn't blamed the hurricane on Trump yet. I'm pretty sure that's coming.
We are praying for those who lost their lives and all the communities devastated by the storm. The president and the vice president will do everything in our power to help with the respond, the recovery, and rebuild. Last night, in advance of Hurricane Milton making landfall, the president spoke by phone with several officials.
One thing I didn't mention, there is kind of flooding in my yard. It's not too bad. Obviously, we just had a hurricane, though. So there's a little bit of flooding, but it didn't seep into my home or anything crazy like you're seeing in some of the videos on YouTube.
In Florida, including Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, Sarasota Mayor Liz Alpert, and Representative Gus Bilakis and Kathy Castor. This morning, President Biden also spoke to Governor DeSantis about the impacts of Hurricane Milton. The governor thanked the president for the extensive federal support to prepare for and respond to the storm. This afternoon, the president spoke spoke with several additional Florida officials following the impacts of Hurricane Milton across the Florida Peninsula, including Senator Rick Scott, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Gainesville Mayor Harvey Ward, Fort Myers Mayor Kevin Anderson, Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, and Pasco County Chair Ron Oakley. The president told each of these leaders to call him directly if they need additional assistance on rescue, response, and recovery efforts. The president also emphasized that he will be with them and their communities no matter how long it takes. Additionally, FEMA Administrator Criswell has been on the ground in Florida since last night, and today she is surveying the damage alongside her state and local counterparts and will work closely with them to determine any unmet needs. At the direction of the president, FEMA and the federal family began to quickly deploy resources to assist with rescue and response operations, including over 1,200 urban search and rescue personnel and the 3 Coast Guard swift water rescue teams with rescues already underway. Over 1,000 federal personnel, all focused on helping the people of Florida respond and recover. And over 15 million meals and 13 million liters of water are already in the region, with 20 million meals and 40 million liters of water ready to be deployed.
So all businesses are still closed. I didn't see that anything was actually opened. I'm definitely not going anywhere today. I'm staying in my house. Maybe tomorrow we'll get out and kind of assess the area and see around Orlando what's actually going on. But for today, I am just staying my ass at home.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has 2 temporary power teams and a roofing team to diagnose the need for short-term repairs to homes and structures. The Department of Defense has also provided 60 high-water vehicles and personnel who can further aid in search and rescue efforts. To the people of Florida, this is still a very serious situation. Please remain vigilant. Listen to local officials. As the president has said, we will be here for you as long as it takes. Now, as you all know, this is an ongoing response, and we are getting information in real time. We're very grateful that we have the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas here, who is on the ground, here virtually obviously, who's on the ground in North Carolina surveying the damage and helping with response to Hurricane Helene. Regarding Hurricane Milton, we won't have all of the answers right now, but we want to provide as much information as we can. And so with that, I will turn it over to the Homeland Secretary and Homeland Security Secretary. Thank you so much again for joining us, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Karina. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Very
thank
loud.
you. So I am currently joining you from North Carolina, where I've been meeting with our extraordinary FEMA personnel and federal, state, and local partners on the ground about Hurricane Helene's devastating impact and the progress we are making in our work to help North Carolina communities and aid in their recovery. Before I share an update on the situation here in North Carolina, I'll provide you an update on Hurricane Milton, which
I just hear lies after all this time. What lies do you think they're going to tell when it comes to this hurricane?
last night made landfall as a Category 3 storm near Siesta Key, Florida, following a day of heavy rain and at least 27 tornado touchdowns. Our hearts break for the Floridians who have lost so much. I was briefed earlier by FEMA Administrator Criswell, who's on the ground in Florida, as Karine noted, along with more than 1,000 FEMA personnel. There is significant water and wind damage across central Florida. As of
Really? I'm not seeing anything.
this morning, over 3 million customers are without power. Structures have been severely damaged or collapsed. And tragically, we know that lives have been lost. We are praying for them and their loved ones.
Maybe my neck of the woods just got really lucky. The whole neighborhood seems fine. Besides a little bit of flooding, there's no damage to any of the homes or anything. I think maybe we were just really lucky. This guy looks like a Marvel villain. Yeah, a little bit.
Right now, search and rescue is our highest priority, and we are also praying for those who are unaccounted for and for their safe return. It is very significant that many followed local guidance and evacuated ahead of landfall. We cannot minimize the impact of that. It is imperative that everyone continues to follow the direction of local officials. Milton may have passed, but the danger it poses has not. Downed power lines, flood waters, non-potable drinking water, and debris are creating deadly conditions. Keep listening to local officials and shelter in place until it is safe, if told to do so. Only use generators when and where it is safe to do so. People can find more tips on staying safe after a storm on the FEMA app or by visiting ready.gov. In the lead up to Milton, our administration made robust preparations.
So I'm seeing from The Guardian, 4 people have died so far, and they're expecting more as they kind of go through and assess the damage and do repairs and all of that. So that's unfortunate.
For the storm, President Biden approved emergency declarations.
I wonder how many people were caught on the freeway trying to evacuate. So I can tell you Monday and Tuesday, people were fleeing. I don't know about last night because, again, I didn't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere today. But I can tell you traffic was really bad Monday and Tuesday. People just trying to get out of the area.
For the state of Florida and for the Seminole tribe of Florida, days before the storm made landfall, to provide full federal support for the response. We pre-positioned supplies, including food and water, 20 helicopters, 60 Department of Defense high water vehicles with ladders, 1,300 U.S. Coast Guard personnel, and 1,400 urban search and rescue team members across Florida in anticipation of the storm, and staged hundreds of ambulances to assist in the transport of hospitalized patients. Today, FEMA is joining the state to begin damage assessments to ensure Floridians have what they need. FEMA and our federal partners, including the Department of Defense and the United States Coast Guard, are already working closely to support the state of Florida in a comprehensive, coordinated response to the storm. To reiterate President Biden's message yesterday, every available resource is being deployed as fast as possible to impacted communities, and we will not leave until the work is done. The same is true for communities devastated by Hurricane Helene, including here in North Carolina. President Biden and Vice President Harris were here last week, as was I, and we will continue to support impacted communities and first responders on the ground. More than 10,000 federal staff are on the ground supporting Helene and Milton response efforts across the Southeast. Since Helene first made landfall, urban search and rescue teams have rescued over 4,300 people. From a peak of 5.1 million customers without power, we have helped restore power for more than 5 million of them.
Luckily, my power didn't go out. It did flicker a bunch of times around 5 a.m. It kept going on and off. My stove kept on beeping. It was kind of annoying. Did the storm die out or did it go out to the Atlantic? I think it went out to the Atlantic before it kind of dissipated into like a tropical storm.
And we are restoring more every day. We have helped quickly restore cell phone service across
Thanks
the
for
region.
the sub.
At its peak, 3.4 million customers were without service. We have restored service now to more than 3.2 million of them. We have delivered more than 17.2 million meals and more than 13.9 million liters of water. We have helped get over.
So I actually lied. It is still a Category 1 hurricane out there. I'll show you here. Yeah, it's still going. Still a Cat 1, 80 miles per hour. Crazy. Yeah, you can see it landed as a 2. Well, technically it landed as a 3, hitting the coast, and then it kind of dissipated as it went out. Yeah, crazy.
Over $350 million in assistance out to Helene survivors with millions more going out every day. All this and much more. These first responders and their state and local partners are doing truly heroic work in extremely difficult circumstances. We are all immensely grateful for their extraordinary, selfless service. The weeks since Hurricane Helene first made landfall have been devastating and difficult. But I want to be clear, we have the capability and the capacity to respond to and recover from multiple simultaneous disasters. No resources needed for Hurricane Helene response will be diverted to respond to Hurricane Milton. We have made it clear we will be there for every impacted community every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll go to questions. Go ahead, Kayla.
Thank you so much. Mr. Secretary, this is Kayla Tauchi from CNN. President Biden indicated that FEMA and the Department of Defense would have enough money to get through their immediate needs in this recovery phase. I'm wondering, after your early assessments of the damage from Hurricane Milton, now coupled with the damage from Hurricane Helene, do you still believe that to be the case?
Yes, I do. We have the resources to respond to the immediate needs of individuals impacted by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton and the associated, and it's very important to remember, the tornadoes associated with the hurricane. That being said, we will need additional funds, and we implore Congress, when it returns, to in fact fund FEMA as is needed.
If I could, just a quick follow-up. You said on CNN yesterday that some of the misinformation that had been perpetuated around these storms was already beginning to have an impact on individuals either applying or deciding not to apply for government relief. Can you elaborate on what exactly you're seeing and what exactly you determined to be the cause of that?
They're going back into misinformation.
So let me repeat that in fact, the false information that is being spread deliberately does have a real life impact on survivors, and it is also demoralizing for those heroic individuals who are risking their lives in the service of others. Let me give you one example. There is false information that federal employees who are there to help people will actually take their land. And what we have seen is people reticent, reluctant to access the relief to which they are entitled and which will help them because of the fear that that false information has instilled in them.
The only place that I've heard that rumor is literally watching FEMA talk about it. I haven't heard anyone being scared that they're somehow going to step in and take their land. But maybe that's a thing. Who knows? Why does every press conference lately seem like people just needing more funds? That's how the government works. They want to expand their budget for whatever program they're working on, so they have a bigger budget for next year and more money and all this bullshit. That's what the government does. They spend a lot of money and they waste it. In this case, it wouldn't be wasting, it's natural disaster, but generally that's what the government does. We are the U.S., just do it and we'll figure out the money later. Yeah, just print. Burn, baby, burn.
Good, Mary.
That is just one example.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mary Bruce with ABC. Another question on misinformation. We've seen reports that some FEMA officials, including the administrator, are being doxxed and targeted online in the wake of these hurricanes. Are you concerned that individuals involved in the recovery effort are being threatened online?
We most certainly are. We are seeing horrific hate speech of all types propagated on online platforms. That deplorable speech has an impact on people's lives, and it is also a motivating force for people to do harm. And it has got to stop. And it is our work in the Department of Homeland Security to combat hate in all its forms.
This just seems a little bit more played up than anything. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems a little bit dramatic. The way the level they're taking this to seems dramatic.
We will continue that work.
Do you have any information to suggest that any foreign governments have tried to take advantage and amplify this misinformation about the response and recovery effort?
What's going on, Paul?
I have not been alerted to that phenomenon. We, of course, have seen foreign nations disseminate false information for other purposes. I have not seen it in the context of Hurricane Helene or.
I mean, when it comes to saving Florida's from hurricanes, save them. Don't wait until the check clears. We should transfer money from foreign wars. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the issue that they're actually talking about here is we're not taking care of these people well enough. And that's why people are frustrated. Maybe people say some crazy things at that point because they're frustrated, but I don't think these directors or people running FEMA are in any real danger. I think that's a little bit dramatic.
The Hurricane Milton, which just transpired. But of course, we are quite vigilant in monitoring that.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas. It's Nancy Cordes from CBS News. Hurricane Milton knocked out power to more than 3 million customers. How does the scope of the power situation compare to other disasters? And what is the federal government?
Kind of sick, man. You need some vitamin C. Get some emergency in your water. 2 natural disasters in 2 weeks, and we are still worried about misinformation and hate speech. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, you guys are being a little bit dramatic. It's not probably that serious. I'm sure they're getting trolls and hate comments and all that stuff, but it's the internet, man. Everybody gets them because people are angry. They're dealing with inflation. They don't have money for things. Their home was just destroyed in a hurricane. You know, like I don't think in any instance they're in any real danger.
Government's role in coordinating the of that power? How long will it take?
So it's a number of questions. Unclear how long it's going to take because, quite frankly, the damage assessment is still underway. So we're at a very, very early stage. Our role generally is to support the state and local officials, the state and local resources, to augment those resources and to work very, very closely alongside them. And we are doing so both in response to Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. You know, the response is actually in a number of phases. The immediate phase is search and rescue, life and safety of individuals. And then we go from search and rescue to response and then to recovery. We work very closely with the state and local officials to rebuild whatever infrastructure has been damaged to get power up. We have the capacity to assist, and we also work with the private sector. We have the ability to deliver power immediately, but for the long term, very often infrastructure has to be rebuilt. My visit here in North Carolina underscored that fact because one of the long-term challenges is going to be to rebuild the water system in a number of cities where it's been completely decimated.
So I was watching YouTube last night, and there were so many of these live streamers just rolling around in their cars in the hurricane, and they would literally have the weather app tracking where the deadliest part of the storm was, and they're like, oh, let's just go to the red zone. Let's just drive into that. And people were just doing that. Not just like one person, you know, just a bunch of people. You just search it, and they're like, yeah, we're storm chasers. Like, come on. No, you're just some dude putting everyone's life in danger. The people who are spreading disinfo piss me off, but I have some sympathy for boneheads that run with it. Absolutely. I mean, if you're just out there like throwing misinformation, like, sure, yeah, you're an asshole, no doubt. I'm just saying, I don't think any kind of threats they're getting, I don't think anyone's actually doing anything.
Yeah, Jackie.
Thanks, Green. Mr. Secretary, it's Jackie Heinrich from Fox. I want to ask you about a different story. This Afghan national who...
You see my power flickering? I guess they're still doing repairs. Luckily, my power didn't go out, so that's good. Saw some of that. That was nuts. Yeah, like, what are these people doing? Like, go home. What kind of hotel do you think these FEMA leaders are staying at? Guaranteed it's not a Motel 6 or Super 8. Absolutely not. Of course not.
Who was working for the CIA in Afghanistan was arrested for planning an election day terror plot. He was brought to the U.S. after Afghanistan collapsed. Your agency says as part of the SIV program. The State Department is telling us he was not part of the SIV program, which had strenuous vetting. They say he was never issued an SIV or immigrant visa, and DHS paroled him into the U.S. They further expect the court document to be updated to reflect this from the DOJ side. So, Mr. Secretary, how was this man brought into the U.S.? What screening did he undergo? What did he apply for to get here?
Jackie, I'm here in North Carolina communicating with the individuals who are still conducting search and rescue operations. Over 200 people have lost their lives in Hurricane Helene. We have reports that at least 10 individuals have lost their lives as a result of Hurricane Milton. I'd be very pleased to answer your question in a different setting, but we're here to talk about emergencies and the support that we.
Okay, that's an upgrade from what I just read. When I was looking at The Guardian, they said 4 had died, but he's saying now it's up to 10, which I'm sure those numbers are just going to rise as they do recovery efforts.
Can deliver to people in desperate need. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary, but we're getting conflicting answers from your agency and from the State Department about a man who was arrested for an election day terror plot. How do you not have those answers prepared?
Jackie, that's not what I said. What I said is I'd be pleased to discuss this issue at a different time, but I am here to speak about disasters that have impacted people's lives in real time, and that is a subject that I'm addressing today.
Mr. Secretary, can you assure people that appropriate steps have been taken to secure the country against these kinds of threats? Because the outstanding question is whether this man was radicalized before the U.S. government brought him here or afterward. And people should be concerned about that.
Jackie, your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers.
All right, we're going to go. Go ahead, Gabe.
Mr. Secretary, thank you.
He is not having it today. That was a bad time question. Yeah, especially with the briefing he's trying to give.
Gabe Gutierrez here with NBC. I want to go back to the funding question a little bit more specifically. So 8 days into the fiscal year, the federal government has spent nearly half of the money that Congress has allocated for disaster relief for the next 12 months. How concerning is that?
Obviously it's concerning, but hopefully they're going to get an influx of money from Congress.
It is very concerning, but let me be clear. We can meet the immediate needs arising from Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and the tornadoes associated with it. When Congress returns, we will need them to act swiftly to appropriately fund the disaster relief fund upon which FEMA relies to deliver assistance to people after extreme weather events. And so we can meet the immediate needs. We will need funding very rapidly.
What if there's another disaster next week?
We are working on a continuing resolution. That is not stable footing for the work that we do in disaster response. And so that is why I underscore the need for Congress to act swiftly upon its return.
Good, Michael.
That lady is from Fox News, so no Peter today. Well, at least she's taking his aura and pressing for answers. So, good for her, I guess. Figured she was. Yeah, exactly.
Great. Mr. Secretary, Michael Wilner with McClatchy. Just want to ask you specifically about the National Flood Insurance Program. Already the NFIP has been chronically in the red. How do you anticipate Milton will affect that program, and is there a specific ask of Congress?
Michael, I'll have to follow up with you on that, but I've been in the Department of Homeland Security as the Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and the Deputy Secretary, and now, of course, as the Secretary, and I've always known the flood insurance program to be in the red.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, this is Courtney Rosen from Bloomberg Government. I would like to ask about the upcoming election in the next couple weeks. Are you thinking about that issue in terms of voters being able to access their polling places in states that are having such significant damage?
I know a lot of people are really concerned about that. These are weird questions for a disaster update. Yeah, they're trying to get in on the political questions because those do better in the media. Those are going to sell more. People already know that this is a horrible hurricane. People's lives are lost, and them printing those stories probably don't make that much money for them. But like election, let's say like the votes were swept away by the hurricane. People are going to love that. They're going to eat that up.
Courtney, we have seen state and local officials who are, of course, on point in ensuring access to voting. We have seen them take measures to ensure that people can, in fact, reach their polling places. Some polling places have been damaged, for example, as a result of Hurricane Helene, but they are pivoting to make sure that there are other facilities available to them, and they'll have different places at which they can place their votes. And this is something that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency of our department, CISA, as it is known by its acronym, works very closely with state and local officials to assist in that regard.
Can you give an example of one way that they are assisting in this time?
So what we do, there are three threat vectors. There's physical violence. There's the concern about physical violence. There is the concern about cyber attacks, and there's the concern about disinformation. An example is that we are protective security advisors in each state that assist state and local officials in sharing best practices about how to secure the facilities, both from a physical perspective and a cyber security perspective. That would be one example.
Okay, go ahead. We're going to start wrapping it up, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This is Skylar Woodhouse with Bloomberg News. As you mentioned earlier, you said that FEMA, will need funds when Congress comes back. But if there is another disaster prior to Congress coming back to session, and as you continue to work with Helene and Milton, will FEMA have to perhaps stop offering services or sending out support for aid if you're running out of cash before Congress comes back?
No, it will not. We have the funds to address immediate needs. If we have to devote the resources that we have to immediate needs, we will do so at the expense of perhaps other long-term recovery efforts. We need Congress to act swiftly upon its return, but we will meet immediate needs.
Storms will be one of the excuses to sabotage transfer of power. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying too. Like the media is looking for outrage clicks, anything that gets people going and want to read their articles more.
All right, Jared, you have the last question.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, as you talk about the need for Congress to come back and obviously replenish funds when they do that, I'm just curious moving forward as you look forward to future appropriation battles, does Congress need to rethink how they are funding FEMA and disaster relief? In other words, is it like an underfunded service and program of the federal government as is?
Sure seems like it.
Let me take a step back and widen the aperture of that question, if I may. A continuing resolution is not a stable way to fund the federal government. Needs change from year to year.
Right.
And we need real budgets upon which we can rely and upon which we can predicate responsible financial planning and financial management. So a continuing resolution only retains a level of instability in the work that we do in terms of the assurance of the funding that we need. The Disaster Relief Fund and the funding of it should be completely nonpartisan and apolitical. This is a fund that provides much needed relief to individuals regardless of party. And I have said publicly many a time since Hurricane Helene first hit in late September, that when our brave individuals, and I say our meaning not just federal, but federal, state, and local, reach into flooded waters to save an individual, they are not asking about that individual's party affiliation. They are rescuing a fellow human being, and we need to be funded accordingly.
Right on.
All right.
I have just one quick one to follow up, Secretary.
Wait, hold on. Go ahead, Will. I told him it was the last question. So, Mr. Secretary, we have one more for you. Go ahead, Will.
Sorry. It's Will Weiser with AP. You mentioned at least 10 people killed in relation to Milton. Is that were those tornado deaths? Can you give us a little bit more information about where that number came from?
Let me be clear, and this is something I want to echo that Karine mentioned at the very outset. This is a very fluid situation. We are just beginning damage assessment. So we have 10 confirmed fatalities. Our understanding is that those fatalities were caused by the tornadoes, but I just want to introduce a little bit of tentativeness to that because of the fluidity of the situation and how nascent it is.
So when I'm watching YouTube and I'm watching like the videos of the actual hurricane, it didn't seem that bad, to be honest. Like the flooding obviously is terrible, but what seemed really bad was what he just said, the tornadoes. The tornadoes were the things that were actually going out and wrecking all the homes and causing all the damage, throwing like I saw a video of a dumpster that got thrown on top of this guy's house from a tornado. That seems like that was the worst situation to actually be in.
It is our job to make sure that that number doesn't climb through valiant search and rescue efforts, but we are dealing in the immediate aftermath of a terrible hurricane and many, many tornadoes ancillary to it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate it. Appreciate everything.
Especially when you look and you see all these YouTubers were going out there and live streaming, going into the hurricane hotspots, but you're definitely not going to do that with a tornado.
Everything that you're doing.
Thank
you. All right. We don't have too much time because the president, as you all know, is speaking at 2 o'clock. So, Will, what do you have for me?
Okay,
She cut it
I
short.
wanted to switch gears a little bit. Does the White House have reaction to the UN interim force in Lebanon report that Israel has fired on their position in Lebanon, and there's been at least 2 peacekeepers that were injured? Does the president think that there should still be UN peacekeepers in the region?
So I want to be mindful. I heard about those reports coming in. I need to talk to the team and get to the ground truth of exactly what's happening. I just want to be super mindful because I don't have all the information for me to respond to you at this time. Once I have that, then we can certainly respond.
Can you comment more generally on peacekeepers?
I mean, obviously, peacekeepers, we want them to be safe and protected, but I just don't have anything for you on that particular event that's happening on the ground. I just heard those reports, and I just want to make sure I have the full breadth of the information before I respond. Okay, Danny.
Thanks, Karine. The readout of the president's call with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday said they'd remain in close touch. Just wondered if the president or the White House has heard anything more about Israel's plans for retaliation, and secondly, do we know when they're expected to speak again?
So look, I don't have anything to preview on the next call, as you know, and I've said this many times before.
Israel has a right to defend itself, blah, blah, blah. Exactly. They're our allies, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, here it comes.
It's this past a little bit now over a year. The
Bipartisan border bill.
president and the prime minister have spoken over a dozen times. We talked a little bit in this room about the call yesterday, 30 minutes. It was direct, it was productive. There was a readout that we all put out.
I'm surprised that they're admitting that they only spoke 12 times. After all, like, these past several months, they're saying that they were constantly in negotiations of a ceasefire. Like, they were so close, they were working on it. It was moments away, and really they only spoke 12 times. She's saying more than 12 times now. She's changing it a little bit, but it doesn't really sound like they're in communication that much.
And as I said yesterday, and I'll continue to iterate here, this was as it relates to the Iran's attack, they continued the discussion that happened on the staff level, obviously on the leaders level. And I'm just going to be super mindful here. I'm not going to read out from here what Israel's going to do or not going to do. And frankly, I'm certainly not going to read that out to the Iranians. So going to keep that diplomatic conversation as it should be. It is a private conversation, and we read out as much as we were able to, just to give you a little bit of a sense of color of what happened on that call.
I think that's fair. As much as people probably don't like that answer, I think that's actually a pretty good response.
I ask if you do expect to hear from the Israelis after the Security Cabinet meeting.
I don't have anything to share. What I can say, though, and we've said this many times before, there is regular communication that is happening with the Israeli government, certainly on the staff level, on a daily basis, and certainly that will continue as we have done for the past more than a year now. Okay, Kayla.
Thank you, Kareem. Earlier this week, Hezbollah's Deputy Secretary General expressed a willingness to renew talks for a ceasefire. What is the U.S.'s response to that, and what does the White House believe the willingness of Israel is to begin those talks again?
Say that one more time, the beginning of that.
The Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah expressed support for a ceasefire deal.
Look, what I will say is obviously we do not have conversations here with Hezbollah or any of the Iran-backed groups. We don't speak to Iran. That is not how we communicate. We will continue to have conversations with Israel about a way forward with Lebanon, about a way forward here. We believe a ceasefire is the way to go in order to create space to have diplomatic conversations. That's what we believe, and so that both sides can return back home to their respective borders. And that's what we want to see, and those discussions continue.
Just to follow up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has showed a willingness to disregard the preferences of President Biden and the U.S. team in how he's prosecuted the conflict in the Middle East. And I'm wondering if the White House is giving any new consideration to conditions being placed on aid delivered to Israel.
No.
I wanted to ask a question about the disinformation with the hurricanes. And has the White House been in touch with the leadership of social media networks where a lot of this disinformation is being spread?
So obviously, as we have stated, and the president was very, very clear yesterday about misinformation, disinformation, and how dangerous it is, especially right now when he was speaking at the time, when we were dealing and trying to respond to disasters and preparing at the time when he was responding. So we have made, certainly been in touch with trusted online publishers, influencers, other trusted messengers to meet people where they are, and that's what we have been trying to do, be on those platforms, those traditional media outlets as well, to be very clear about making sure they have the accurate information. And so that is one of the reasons earlier this week the White House launched the Reddit, the first Reddit account, to ensure that even more
The White House joined Reddit, really?
we can meet more people where they are, so we can make sure that we have that accurate information. So that's what we're doing to make sure that we're on those platforms, pushing out what is the accurate information. So
I may not have heard it, but what kind of misinformation is being given out about the hurricane? Well, they just said that some kind of rumor was started where if people are receiving funding for damage done by the hurricane, that FEMA can step in and take their house, which is obviously not true.
Folks out there, people out there who are certainly impacted by 2 hurricanes, has the information that they need.
Platforms themselves doing enough to police the disinformation?
I mean, look, they're private companies, so I'm not going to tell them what to do, what not to do. I think everybody has a responsibility here to try to make sure that the information that they are providing, whether you are a leader, a national leader, a congressional leader, a former president, you have certainly the duty to be accountable here and to make sure that you are sharing the right information, truthful information, not falsehoods that, frankly, certainly put people in harm's way and makes it hard for these brave men and women. You heard the president talk about this yesterday, who are on the ground providing assistance. It puts them in harm's way as well. Okay, Mary.
This talk about misinformation almost seems like a way of deflecting to just talk about misinformation and not talk about the real issues at hand. That's what it feels like to me. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't.
To that end, Congresswoman Luna, who represents the St. Petersburg area, said that she spoke with the president today about the response. She is one of those people who has been spreading disinformation, misinformation about FEMA assistance. Did that come up in the conversation? Did the president, directly talk to her about that and encourage her to stop it?
Look, the president was certainly focused on what's happening on the ground and making sure that the federal government is any needs that are unmet are met, and that everybody who is on the ground, certainly local officials, elected officials who are trying to help their community, has what they need. And look, the president was very clear. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for bad faith actors, right, to continue to push out misinformation. As I stated, it is dangerous. It gets in the way of providing the assistance that we need. We have heard, you all have reported on stories where people are not asking for assistance because of the misinformation. And so the president was really clear. It is very, very clear. And one of the issues that we have heard, or the lies or falsehoods that are out there, is the $750. It is the beginning. It is something so that people are able to buy, diapers, to buy milk, or able to buy necessities that they need in the moment, at the time, after dealing with such a horrible event. And the $750 is the beginning, and there is more to come. But it's not helpful when people do that. So the president's not going to shy away from that. He was very straightforward, very forceful about it twice yesterday when he spoke to the public. And so we're going to be very, very clear. It is unacceptable. But the calls that the president made today was about making sure that Americans, people on the ground who have been affected by this hurricane, this most recent hurricane, Hurricane Milton, they have what they need on the ground.
Thanks, Corinne. Following up on Jackie's question from earlier on the Afghan terror suspect, NBC is reporting that he was a security guard for the CIA before he came to the U.S. and that he passed 2 rounds of vetting. Does the administration believe there was adequate vetting?
So what I can say is I cannot comment on this directly because it is an active investigation. As you know, that the Department of Justice is currently moving forward with, so I'm going to be really careful. What I can say is every Afghan national who entered the U.S. was screened and vetted by intelligence, law enforcement, counterterrorism professionals, and with every new information that emerges...
I didn't hear about this. I want to kind of see what they're talking about here. It's amazing how misinformation wasn't an issue until they got caught lying about Russia. Absolutely. But what are they talking about with this Afghan national?
An individual, if that individual could pose a threat to public safety, we take immediate action, and we take that action. And so not going to speak to this particular case, but I can speak more broadly, and that's the actions that we normally take. That's how we move forward. And the president has always been clear. Protecting the American people will always be his top.
Okay, so this is what I found immediately from CNN. It says Afghan national charged with election day terrorist plot in U.S. It's from today. It says the Justice Department announced charges Tuesday against an Afghan national who was allegedly plotting a terrorist attack in support of ISIS on election day. Yikes. It said the FBI arrested 27-year-old Nasser Ahmad Tawhidi in Oklahoma on Monday after he purchased rifles and ammunition from an undercover law enforcement officer. He's facing several charges, including conspiring and attempting to provide material supporting ISIS. Okay. Partnering with an unnamed juvenile, Tawhidi planned to liquidate his assets, repatriate his family to Afghanistan, purchase assault rifles, and stage a violent attack in the U.S., court documents say. The juvenile has been arrested according to court documents. Okay. Interesting. What was he planning on doing? Where was this attack at is my question, I guess. Over the summer, he allegedly searched online for how to access Washington, D.C. cameras. Okay, so he's trying to do some like secret agent type shit? Which U.S. state does not require relations to get a firearm? Okay. And which states have passed permitless carry gun laws? He also visited the webcams for the White House and the Washington Monument in July. He began talking to a known ISIS recruiter on the messaging platform Telegram in August, according to court documents. Messages recovered by the FBI and highlighted in court documents show he and the recruiter allegedly discussing firearms, and he asked if someone would be able to guide his family in the near future. Okay. All right. Seems a little crazy. He had ISIS propaganda found on his phone and donations he made to charities known to funnel money to terrorist organizations. All right, that's some crazy stuff there.
Broadly, what would you say to critics who say there isn't enough vetting in these cases?
These seem kind of convenient, kind of like that Iranian guy a couple weeks ago with the pew pew attempt. Does it? I mean, ties to ISIS? Maybe, possibly, if we put our tinfoil hat on.
What I can say is how I just ended my last question to you. Protecting the American people is the president's top priority. Good. In the back.
From what you and other officials have said, I gather that the U.S. has at least two stated goals in Lebanon. The first one, you said that you don't want it to turn into another Gaza. You're working towards cessation of hostilities. But you also support Israeli efforts in dismantling Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon. So how can those two goals exist in the same time frame? Is the understanding to first allow Israel to push back against Hezbollah before going into negotiations?
Oh gosh. Okay. We gotta move. We have to move. No, I'm just trying to make sure that we're out of here because the president's speaking at 2:00. That's what they're giving me updates on. We got to move pretty quickly on answering that question, Patsy. I'll say this. Look, I think two things. Both things could be true and at the same time. We believe that, and I said this moments ago, we want to see a ceasefire deal. That's what we want to see, to provide some space for diplomacy so that that would enable civilians to go back home on both sides, right? To go back home, both sides of the border. And so we're going to have those discussions. We're going to hoping to be able to achieve that goal. And we believe ultimately a diplomatic resolution is the way to move forward here. And to your point about Israel, we believe Israel has the right to defend itself. That's what we believe. We've said that. And what we understand is the operation that they're moving forward with in Lebanon are indeed targeted. We're having those conversations. We're being very direct in having those conversations with the Israeli government. That will continue. And we have been very clear with this as well. We believe and support and certainly support Israel's right to defend itself, and certainly Israel's security continues to be ironclad, our support for them.
And just to pick up on your point that it's targeted, have you, considering the fact that there are American citizens still in Lebanon, have you received any Israeli guarantees that they won't strike the airport in Beirut, as well as the road to the airport, which I understand goes through Hezbollah-controlled territory?
We continue to have very, very direct conversation with the Israeli government. That's what we're going to do about how the shape and scope and the nature of their operations, of their campaign moves forward. We are going to have, again, very direct conversations with them.
And if I may just quickly on Taiwan, Corinne, in response to Taiwan National Day celebrations, China is feared to respond by either conducting war games or sending its assets to the region. Is the administration prepared on such an event, considering a lot of the military assets are being deployed to the Middle East?
So look, you're talking about the speech that the Taiwan president made. Look, that it is tradition, as you know, for on that day, a longstanding tradition for Taiwan's president to deliver remarks on 10/10. It is routine domestic focus address that has historically prompted little response from Beijing. This year should be no different. We're not going to speculate on what the PRC will or will not do this year, but we see no justification, certainly, for a routine annual celebration to be used as a pretext for military exercises. We urge Beijing to act with restraint. Our one China policy has not changed, and we've been really consistent about that the past 3.5 years. Go ahead, Michael.
Great. Just following up on my colleague's question about the president's call with some Florida officials and lawmakers. I know you mentioned that he had been cleared yesterday with regard to disinformation around the hurricane response. But did it come up specifically in that call? Was that a conversation?
I don't have anything to share besides the president reaching out to elected officials, local and statewide, to offer up their assistance, his assistance, the federal government assistance, to check in, to see what else that they need. We are dealing with, obviously, the impact of a pretty powerful hurricane, Hurricane Milton, and so that was his focus on the call today. I think he's been very he said it publicly, right? So he's been very public about how he feels about misinformation. And as president, he felt that he needed to say something because it was harming Americans out there who are have been impacted, whether by Hurricane Helene, now impacted by Hurricane Milton, and they need to get the assistance, right? They need to make sure that we wanted to make sure they were ready, whether evacuating, sheltered ahead of this hurricane. And when you have this type of misinformation, disinformation out there, it certainly steps on that. And so, as president, he spoke very publicly twice yesterday, and I think that message was sent loud and clear. Okay.
Thanks, Corinne. Since President Biden postponed his foreign trip due to Hurricane Milton, has the president spoken with German Chancellor Scholz yet? Just about, maybe rescheduling the trip, just kind of talking since there was a lot planned.
Yeah, so I think we've stated that we're going to be rescheduling the trip. That's what we're trying to work out all of the details. That's important to the president to do that. When I have more information, obviously you all will be one of the first to know. And the president is planning to speak to both of the leaders very, very soon. And so once we have that information, we'll certainly share that with all of you as well. I think I have to wrap it up here. Yep.
So will the leader level Ukraine Defense Contact Group be rescheduled, or will it happen in the coming weeks at the ministerial level?
So what I can say on the leader level, I understand that that's going to be that conversation is going to be postponed, and so that I can speak to. That's going to definitely be postponed. Okay. All right. In the back, I haven't called on you, Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on the calls, Florida Senator Rick Scott said that President Biden agreed that Congress should come back early to fund FEMA. So is there a more urgent need, and is the administration all in line with what we heard from Secretary Mayorkas talking about getting Congress to come back?
Yeah, they probably should come back.
I mean, look, what we have been very clear about is Congress needs to act. We had a CR. We had a pretty robust ask in the CR to make sure that we continued to fund that emergency disaster funding, pardon me. And so that didn't go through. We were disappointed that it didn't make it into the CR. And so that is unfortunate. But we've also been clear that Congress needs to act. And what we have seen in the past is when Congress can still act on emergency items, move forward emergency ask during recess. That is something that they can do. And so we're going to continue to say that. We're going to continue to be very clear. We have to see this moving forward. You saw the letter from the president earlier this week saying that there's SBA disaster funding that's about to run out in weeks. We believe that Congress can do the job, right? They can do this job. They can
After they take their vacation, then they'll do the job, maybe.
make sure that we get that additional funding during recess. We have seen them do this before. It is not unusual. It is something that they've been able to do when there has been an important decision to be made. And so that's what we want to see. All right, I know we got to go. The president's about to speak, so I don't want to hold you guys up. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so there she is. A lot of FEMA disaster relief kind of conversations going on today. Jeez. I thought all of government was supposed to be on call. Why haven't they been called back? They're not going to get called back, man. It's just, what other job just takes a vacation like that when they're needed? It's insane. What other job can you just go, I'm just going to take a break? I might watch and see what Biden had to say. He's supposed to be making comments about the hurricane. Let me see. When does it start?
Department of Defense,
There it is.
including
Okay. Let me
Director.
go back.
Noon.
All right, let's move about there. Yeah, he did a quick little, like, 10-minute speech. Let's see what he has to say. There we go. All right, so Biden's about to come out here and talk about Hurricane Milton.
Good afternoon.
There he is.
I'll be brief. Last night, Hurricane Milton made landfall, as we all know,
Yep.
on the west coast of Florida. Brought hurricane winds, heavy rains, including 10 to 20 inches of rain in the Tampa area overnight. Storm surge measurements are still being taken, but 38 tornadoes ripped through 13 counties. 4 deaths are reported thus far. It's too early to know the full account of the damage, though.
He just said 4 again, which we saw that from this Guardian article, but based off of the lead guy at FEMA, who was just at the White House press briefing, he said the death toll was already up to 10. And obviously that's going to increase as they start doing more of a damage assessment, going through homes and checking on people and all the damage that was done.
But we know life-saving measures did make a difference. More than 80,000 people followed orders to safely shelter last night. And we've had search and rescue teams at the ready for any calls for help this morning. There's still very dangerous conditions in the state, and people should wait to be given all clear by their leaders before they go out.
Apparently his updates are very up to date. Yeah, he's missing some information going on there. I don't know, maybe that was something that FEMA director just announced, and it hasn't really circulated enough in the media yet, and he didn't get a briefing on it.
We know from previous hurricanes that it's often the case that more lives are lost the days following the storm than actually during the storm itself. Vice President Harris and I have been in constant contact with the state and local officials. We're offering everything they need. I must have spoken to somewhere between 10 and 15 mayors and county executives and all the governors. And in fact, starting this morning, we are getting direct assessments from the storm of FEMA, from Director Criswell as well, also Florida Governor DeSantis, whom I had a chance to speak. And the Vice President and I have just convened a meeting this morning with the leaders of the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, including NORTHCOM Commander, who has responsibility for providing defense support to civilian authorities. And that apparently is going very well. As well as from the Coast Guard and from FEMA, we've received reports.
I wonder if Harris is still mad that DeSantis won't answer her calls. Probably. Yeah, she was really trying to make that a political move for her, and he shut her down pretty quickly.
We focused on what the American military can do like no one else can, provide emergency support for communities in need.
It's kind of disgusting when you think about it. She has no involvement in these hurricanes at all, but she had to step in. It's kind of gross.
And we're required by the governor in the required by the governor in the affected states. And I've spoken to all the governors, not today, all of them, but I've spoken to all of them thus far, and how we can be ready to go in an instant when the call comes. At my direction, the Defense Secretary Austin has provided a range of capabilities both to Florida for Hurricane Milton, as well as the states impacted by Hurricane Helene. And the more capabilities are available, we assess the pressing needs, we can get whatever they need. To the servicemen and women who are on the ground responding to these disasters, thank you. Thank you for your professionalism, your dedication to every mission you're given. And you're repeating it again.
He's really struggling today.
This is a whole of government effort. It also includes the Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is providing mortgage relief for impacted homeowners. As directed, FEMA is going to open disaster recovery centers all across the impacted communities right away. So there's one stop the residents can go to learn about the support they might need, and they'll be advertised where those places are. 3 million people are without power, but more than 40 million power line workers have come from around the country, from Canada to Florida, to restore power across the state. In addition, the Federal Aviation has authorized Florida Power and Light to fly large drones before other manned aircraft can get up in the sky to quickly assess the damage on the ground so ground crews can restore power as quickly as possible. The Coast Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers are assessing how fast they can reopen the Port of Tampa to get fuel, food, water, and other basic goods flowing into the area again and quickly. Additionally, Vice President Harris and I said yesterday, and we'll say it again, to anyone who seeks to take advantage of our fellow Americans' desperation, whether you're a company engaging in price gouging or a citizen trying to scam your neighbors, we will go after you and we will hold you accountable. Now, not only that, our fellow Americans are putting their lives on the line to do this dangerous work.
You see him speak like this today, and people are shocked that foreign leaders don't listen to him. He's pulling it off. He's getting better.
And receive death penalties. Some received death penalties yesterday as a result of reckless, irresponsible,
maybe not,
or relentless disinformation and outright lies that continue to flow. Those who engage in such lies are undermining confidence in the rescue and recovery work that's opening and ongoing. As I speak, they're continuing. These lies are also harmful to those who most need help. Lives are on the line. People are in desperate situations. Have the decency to tell them the truth. So let me say this. To all the people impacted by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, despite the misinformation and lies, the truth is we're providing the resources needed to rescue, recover, and rebuild. And rebuild. Let me close with this. I know recovery and rebuilding projects can take a long and difficult time. But as long after the press and the cameras move on, I promise you, you have to pick up the pieces still. I want you to know we'll do everything in our power to help you put pieces back together and get all that you need. But God bless you, and may God bless our troops and our first responders who are in some cases risking their lives to help. Thank you very much. I'll be reporting again tomorrow. Thank you.
Is he going to take questions, though?
Mr. President, on FEMA funding,
There we go. Come on.
funding, how much time does Congress have to act before FEMA or the SBA run out of money?
That's in discussion now, but I don't want to mislead you. I think in terms of the SBA, it's pretty right at the edge right now. And I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on the emergency needs immediately. And they're going to have to come back after the election as well, because this is going to be a long haul for total rebuilding. It's going to take several $1 billion. It's not going to be a matter of just a little bit. But we're providing now to make sure people have the emergency relief they need. The dollars just to be able to get a prescription filled, to get a baby formula done. All the things, that $750 that they're talking about, but Mr. Trump and all those other people know it's a lie to suggest that's all they're going to get. That's bizarre.
There it is. Blame Trump.
It's bizarre. They got to stop this. They're being so damn un-American with the way they're talking about this stuff. But there's going to be a need for significant amounts of money. We're already underway at trying to calculate what the costs will be because we don't want to mislead anybody. We want to make sure all the costs are able to be covered.
Have you spoken to Speaker Johnson about coming back before the election to vote?
No, I haven't.
Mr. President, so are you
They're not coming back early.
calling on Congress to come back early?
I think Congress should move as rapidly as they can, particularly on the most immediate need,
They're all on a beach somewhere.
which is small business.
But are you the Vice President said yesterday that FEMA has what it needs. There's enough resources. The Congress does not need to come back, right?
FEMA has its needs. That's different than SBA.
Okay, so it's SBA. They need to come back and do SBA.
Yeah, but they're going to need a lot more.
Mr. President, what did Prime Minister Netanyahu tell you about his plans relating to retaliation?
He's coming over to help with the storm.
Mr. President, have you spoken
What?
to former President Trump at all?
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump.
Mr. President Trump, this is going downhill really quick.
Get a life, man. Help these people.
Will you hold him accountable? You said you were going to hold those accountable.
Why would he be the one helping people? You're the president.
Hold them accountable. You better than the press hold them accountable because you know the truth.
Do you plan to speak with former President Trump?
No.
That got real weird. Weird, man. Netanyahu is coming to help with the storms. Yeah, I think he was trying to make a joke, if we're going to give that to him. That got real weird towards the end. Trump should donate a lot to NC and Florida just to be spiteful. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to dig up that scenario. The media is trying to make it seem like Trump is secretly running the country from a side angle or somehow starting his own revolution from the side or some shit. I don't even know what they're trying to do, but they're just looking for views, man. It's really what it comes down to. What was the last thing he said while walking away? I forgot at this point. He was mumbling and being crazy. Like I said, it just got weird. It got weird towards the end. He said something about Trump going in to save them. I'm sure Trump's going to make a comment about that. Well, that looks like that is our news for the day. It's going to be all about the hurricane, pretty much. All right, I'm going to log off. Y'all have a great one. And I'll see you